Good evening from the White House. I'm Kelly Wright. Thanks for joining us this hour from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And I do sincerely hope that wherever you are, that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. My opening observations, I'll get right to it. We must continue to fight the fight against this coronavirus. We're all in this together. You'll recall that it was about a week ago that the President of the United States changed course in stating that we are in fact facing this pandemic and that things would likely get worse before getting better. Now, because of that, we must continue to arm ourselves with knowledge about how we deal with this to mitigate and flatten the curve of this coronavirus. If we fail to do that, this pandemic will only grow worse and we may see more deaths as a result of our failure to act. So my point is, in observing this, obey everything that we're trying to do. Social distance ourselves, wear a mask, don't politicize it, wear it, and take care of yourself and each other. And those are my opening observations. So tonight, we talk to the nation's doctor, Surgeon General Jerome Adams, about what's going on and how the White House and how he himself personally views this pandemic. Surgeon General, thank you for being on the show tonight. And I indeed want to ask you first, how are we doing in this global pandemic? How are we responding to it effectively in such a way that we can mitigate the virus and stop it before it does more damage?
Well, a great question, and the first thing I'll say is that we are not where we want to be. We're seeing increasing case counts all across the country, particularly in the South and Southwest. We need to understand the urgency of the situation in front of us right now. But we also need to understand that while that is true, it is also true we are in a much better position to respond than what we were in February and in March. We have more knowledge about who's at risk. We know that people of color, people with certain medical conditions are at higher risk. We know that the older people in our society are at higher risk. We have better treatments. Remdesivir, steroids are resulting in a much decreased fatality rate, and they're also resulting in a decreased hospitalization rate in our country. We've got more availability of personal protective equipment, and we just passed 50 million tests. But I want everyone to understand that we can't test or treat our way out of this problem if we have runaway demand. And so it's important that we do what we can to prevent disease. And that's why I have my face covering. And I want everyone to understand that I'm wearing this to model good behavior. I'm going to take it off now because you and I are 6 feet apart from one another. But we need everyone to understand we have the tools to actually stop the spread of this disease. Wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear a face covering. And if we do that, then in just 2 to 3 weeks, there's every reason to believe that we can level off the increases and start to see them come back down.
Welcome back to the program. We're going to take a break from the White House and actually show you what's going on here at the United States Capitol. This is where the body of Congressman John Lewis is lying in state in the rotunda. He is the first black leader to have had this happen for him as a member of Congress, but also as a leader in the civil rights struggle. He talked about making good trouble. He was courageous. And thousands of people have come out to pay tribute to him. There are people from all nationalities and all races echoing his sentiment for trying to create a beloved community. If you take a look around with me here, I'll walk through and show you the number of people who are out here late tonight on a hot, sweltering night here in the nation's capital. But you can see that they're here and they're taking pictures with a photo of the legendary congressman. And just over my shoulder here, you can see the long line of people behind me who have come here to actually pay tribute and their last respects to Congressman John Lewis. And as I stated before, they're from every background. And it's all because of that man's courage. And his courage continues to live in each and every one of us. And his legacy continues to build that beloved community. Welcome back. So I'm joined now by Dr. Peterson Pierre. He's based in California, and he's one of the foremost dermatologists in the California area. And Doc, it's always good of you to join us on this show. Welcome back.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly. It's always a pleasure to be on.
You know, there's a lot going on. I know your specialty is the skin, this big epidermis that we have, the body's largest organ, if you will. And you specialize in taking care of people for the needs that they have with that. But I want to ask you, has coronavirus impacted you at all?
Well, I would say definitely in the state of California, we've seen some rising numbers, which is not surprising. I think one of the things that people don't really think about is that when we're staying at home, obviously the numbers are going to be low because we're not interacting with one another. And then once we leave home and start interacting again, even though we're wearing masks and such, the numbers are going to rise. And that's something that's to be expected. I mean, we can't control natural phenomena. We can only control our response to them. And so we've seen some rising numbers, and there are definitely some different things happening in the state of California as well as all across the country. But I know 3 people personally who've gotten corona, the most recent of which is my sister. 2 of them have completely recovered, and my sister's sort of in the middle of it right now. None of them required hospitalization or anything like that. So thank God for that, but they've recovered, and I expect my sister to recover fully.
Well, I will definitely be praying for your sister's full and complete recovery.
I appreciate that.
Anytime COVID hits, it's always a scare because we don't know where it will go and what it will do. Seems like this virus keeps mutating. Now, your profession, of course, is dermatology, and skin care is a very important aspect of our lives. How can people take better care of their skin in the midst of a coronavirus, also in the midst of the summer? And there's a lot going on, and Black people in concern are always concerned about how they are in the summertime. But I'm going to do a mad turn here. When they're out in the sun, should they be wearing sunscreen? Because, you know, some Black folks say we don't need to wear sunscreen, but if you're brown and out in the sun, you still need it.
Absolutely, 100%. The sun does not discriminate. And so it's an equal opportunity injurer. And so everyone who's out there definitely needs to wear sunblock. Now, I always recommend zinc-based products because, number one, there are no chemicals, so there's no health concern whatsoever. Number 2, zinc actually provides the greatest, broadest spectrum of coverage. So you're going to get the best protection anytime you wear zinc. Now, of course, anytime I speak to someone who's Black or brown skin, like, yeah, I know zinc works, but I don't really want to use that because it makes it look thick, white, and pasty. However, there are definitely some really good products out there that are great for skin of color, blends right in. And the reason I really encourage people to wear sunscreen, especially during the summer, you're going to be outside more, number 1. Number 2, you're going to have more intense sun rays coming at you and potentially causing more damage. And then number 3, one of the things that we're all very sensitive to, especially people of color, is discoloration. So anytime you have any kind of pimple or scrape or cut or burn, that skin is going to turn darker. And then, of course, the sun's job is to make it even darker than that. And we're all very sensitive to that extra discoloration. So you've got to do everything you can to protect yourself from that.
And what about cancer?
Definitely a significant concern. Now, I will admit, those of us who have more melanin in our skin have more innate protection against skin cancer. However, that protection is not 100%. And I have seen skin cancers in skin of color, definitely even in darker skin individuals. I've seen basal cell cancers, which is the most common cancer in the world. And, you know, if you had to pick a cancer, that's the one to have because it doesn't tend to travel. But I've also seen one of the deadliest forms of cancer, meaning melanoma, in skin of color. So you absolutely should do everything you can to protect yourself.
And to me, that comes as a surprise for all the top reasons you just mentioned, that many Black Americans are not susceptible to skin cancer because of the amount of melanin in our skin. And the fact that some are having melanoma, does that go to the core of not wearing sunscreen or some sort of sunblock?
I think so. We look at ourselves and we're darker than the average Caucasian, obviously. And so we think, well, we've got that protection, which is true to a certain extent, but that protection's never 100%. And so there are things that you can do and there are things you can't do. For instance, you can't control the genetic makeup that you have. However, you can control the amount of sun exposure you get and the type of protection that you use when you are outside in the sun. I never tell patients not to go outside. To me, that's completely unrealistic, especially living in Southern California. You should go out, enjoy your life, have a great time, but take the necessary precautions.
That's so true. And right, you got to go outside in Southern California.
Absolutely.
There's no way to stay
That's one of the perks of being here.
Yeah. It's also one of the problems that people are having in Florida and California, all these sunny places, and you're telling people to stay inside because of the coronavirus, and it's just wow. We've got a lot to deal with this year. This year has been unprecedented. How do you sum it all up, Doc?
Well, this is a year of testing, and quite honestly, I'll tell you, I'm not really sure how people make it through this year without the Lord. For me personally, I'm anchored in him. I know he knows the beginning from the end. None of this is taking him by surprise. He has a purpose in it. My goal is to stay grounded in him, listening to his direction, following his will, following his lead. And I know he's going to work it out for good. Now, what that means ultimately, I don't know, but I trust him.
You know what? I concur wholeheartedly, 100%. He is the answer.
He is.
All the problems we're going through today. So
Absolutely.
glad you brought that to the table. That's good. The good doctor talking about the good news in a bad news world. Come on, somebody.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Doc, thank you. It's always good to talk to you. It's such a pleasure to have you on, and I'll make sure that we keep taking care of our skin as well. Thanks, sir.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure being on your show, Kelly. I appreciate it.
All right. God bless you. We'll be back with more after this.